Good evening and welcome to Tulsa City County's annual Take 5 program. I'm Cummings. It's my pleasure to introduce and be your host tonight. So many books to choose from out there. So to kick off our summer reading program, we thought you might need a little help with what to read next. Take 5 gives you 25 recommendations from a diverse group of readers and at a pretty rapid pace. Each of our presenters tonight will have just 5 minutes to recommend 5 books on this year's summer reading program theme, all together now. We were supposed to play Beatles music. We forgot. So we've got some great recommendations for you on the theme of kindness, friendship, and unity. I believe that kindness is a muscle that is strengthened so much by reading. As Neil Gaiman says, fiction gives us empathy. It puts us inside the minds of other people, gives us the gifts of seeing the world through their eyes. One of my most favorite children's chapter books is Walk 2 Moons by Sharon Creech. While this is a fictional story, its very title tells us that empathy is his theme, as we learn not to, quote, judge a man until you have walked 2 moons in his moccasins. It's a great book, too. You can add that to this. Tulsa City County Library's annual summer reading program is a beloved tradition for people of all ages. It's fun, it helps kids and adults keep their reading skills strong and promotes the joy and love of reading. This year's summer reading program kicks off today and continues through July 31st. It features incentive prizes and drawings, special events, bingo sheets, and more for all ages. And I think we have the registrations back there. Register in person at any library location, online, or download the TCCL SRP app, which is brand new this year, and I just downloaded it from the Apple Store right before I came over. It was so popular today, y'all, that it crashed. But it's back. And I also found out from Caleb, one of our wonderful CSAs here at Zero, that we were actually 55th in the App Store today.
Oh, wow.
How amazing is that? So anyway, very cool, and it works great. So plan your summer activities. We have the event guides back there. The events are all free, and they're available at all the different locations. Or you can download the very special summer reading program event guide as well. Prizes are awarded starting June 20th through July 31st, and I don't know if we have the adult prize, but our very own Rebecca Harrison helped pick out the prize and get that all set up for us, and I absolutely adore it. It's a tote bag that says, read, return, repeat. So very, very cute. For more information and to sign up, go to tulsalibrary.org/summer. Now, it's time to hear about our speakers' favorite reads for kindness, friendship, and unity. I believe that one of the greatest gifts we can give is a wonderful book recommendation. Our first speaker is Rebecca Harrison, and she has been working in libraries since 2007. She is the Community Engagement Manager for Dolly, Parton's Imagination Library, a free book gift-giving program geared toward children under the age of 5. In addition to reading, her interests include travel, cats, and Taylor Swift.
Thank you, Ellen. Can everyone hear me? All right. So is everyone here familiar with the character of Stefan from Saturday Night Live? Okay, good. Because he's going to kind of be a recurring theme. All right. So to paraphrase Stefan from Saturday Night Live, this book, several people are talking, has everything. Sentient AI, disembodied howling, poisoned dog food, and adult diapers. I read this book at a coworker's recommendation, and it actually took me less than 2 hours to read. The reason it reads so quickly is because it's told entirely through Slack messages. If you're not familiar with Slack, it is an instant messaging app that's used in a lot of different workplaces. The book starts out as kind of a glimpse into the inner office communication of a New York marketing firm, but it quickly devolves into a techno-horror parable. Our protagonist, Gerald's consciousness is somehow uploaded into Slack, and he's separated from his corporeal body. So he basically lives in Slack, which is just as weird as it sounds. He recruits one of his coworkers to help reunite him with his body, and he also faces off against a very scary and hostile sentient AI, the Slack bot. I picked this book because inter-office relationships are really important and some of the most meaningful ones that we have, since so many of us spend a bulk of our waking hours at work. Guess what? This book also has everything. Oregon Trail, magic eye posters, a messy love triangle, and a healthy dose of 90s and Y2K nostalgia. This book follows an intense and complicated friendship over the course of several decades. Children of the 90s, Sam and Sadie bonded over video games, which offered a welcome escape from their less than ideal lives. The two loved video games so much that they went on to found their own gaming company. I'm a gamer myself, so I really enjoyed getting glimpses into the gaming industry, gaming culture, and even learning a little bit about video game development. But if you are not into gaming, lucky for you, this book is also one of the most beautiful platonic love stories that I have ever read. I was lucky enough to get to interview the author, Gabrielle Zevin, a couple of months ago, and that only increased my appreciation for this book, so highly recommend. This book has everything. Green hair, drunken preteens, my literary husband, Gilbert Blythe, Canada. When asked my favorite book of all time, I invariably answer Anne of Green Gables. I know that it's technically a children's book, but it's just so wonderful. Our protagonist is Anne, an imaginative orphan who's constantly finding herself in various scrapes and misadventures. And one of my favorite parts of the book involves her bosom friend, Diana Barry. Anne accidentally serves her friend currant wine instead of non-alcoholic raspberry cordial, and Diana gets too turned. And she is a sloppy drunk, and Diana's mom is not pleased. She forbids Anne from ever seeing Diana again, but of course that cannot stop true friendship. Anne manages to slip Diana a note, and in it is a poem that I think is really cute and melodramatic. It says, "If you love me as I love you, nothing but death can part us two." So may all of our friendships be that intense, and Okay. Got everything. Dark academia, a murder mystery, a literal bacchanal, and a guy named Bunny. It's one of my favorite reads from last year. It's set at a small liberal arts college in New England, and it follows this group of brilliant but eccentric classics students. Richard is the protagonist, and all that he wants is to be part of this group. And he ends up getting invited into this exclusive classics program that turns out to be more like a cult. We learn from the outset that there's a murder at the heart of this book, and the book is split into two very clear halves: the events leading up to the murder, and then the fallout and aftermath of what ensues. Donna Tartt does an amazing job of kind of ensconcing you in that dark academic world. The mystery, the leaves falling in New England, dark corridors. Really enjoyed it. It's a little pretentious, but still very captivating. And finally, this book has everything. Court politics, multiple perspectives, a steamy lesbian romance, and dragons. It's a high fantasy novel. It really is a true doorstopper. It's almost 900 pages long, which was pretty daunting. And at the heart of the novel is the friendship between Queen Sabrin and her lady-in-waiting Ede. Ede belongs to an exclusive sect, which, you guessed it, is called the Priory of the Orange Tree. And she has been tasked with infiltrating the palace, watching over Sabrin and protecting her, because Sabrin may be humankind's last hope against the very scary antagonist at the heart of this book. And spoiler alert, it's a dragon. Shannon's world building is remarkably detailed and involved, and at 900 pages, it better be. And she actually just came out with a sequel to this one. It's a duology, so if you start it now, you can read the full story. Thank you.
Next we have Shadia Dahlal, who has worked as an actor, director, dancer, choreographer, producer, and writer. She was the artistic director of the Belly Dance Academy of Tulsa Studio. In 2013, she founded the Tulsa Latino Theater Company, now Tella Tulsa. She holds a BA in theater from Cal State University, Fullerton, California, and an MA in theater from OSU. Go Bows! I didn't know that, but still. She is ending her residency with Heller Theater Company as playwright in residence in June of this year. She's also an actor in local theatrical productions and has had several scripts produced by local companies. This November, her newest script, Frida, will be produced by Blackjack Theater Company in collaboration with Tella Tulsa. Shadia.
Hello, everybody. Okay, all right. The first book, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, this one, I would say, is a wonderful book. It's an acid trip in between every page. As I was reading it, I thought that was the first thing I thought to myself, because there's so much going on here. And basically, the main character comes back for a funeral and tells this story about this crazy thing that happened to him as a child. I had to keep rereading every page because I kept thinking, oh no, he didn't. Oh my goodness, I can't believe he's doing that. And while I'm not a big Neil Gaiman fan, I really haven't read a lot of his work. This one I truly enjoyed because it takes place during the main character's childhood. And if you guys were anything like me, I was very creative. I grew up in the 50s, so most of my dreams and stories that went on in my head had to do with old-time movie stars. And guess where I found those books? I would find them at the library where I grew up in Norwalk, California. And so this would have been something wonderful for me to read at that age. The one thing about this book that I really loved is all the creatures and the crazy characters that this main character meets as he's telling this story. And towards the end of the book, after he's told the story, it's something that he forgot about. He didn't realize that he'd gone through this. The Ocean at the End of the Lane, it refers to a little girl that he played with as a child in her strange family. And while I was reading it, I really could not figure out what the magic was. And this is a book I'll need to go back to and read again, because I love magical realism, and I probably need to explore more of this author's books, because this was just a truly magical story. And there's so many twists and turns to it. Something about a group called the Varmints that come in and eat stuff. So I highly recommend this to anybody if you are a fan of this author and if you love magical realism mixed up with a little science fiction. But be warned, you may have to read over and over a lot of times, because for me it was really hard to believe he was going there. Okay, this is one of my favorite ones because being immersed in the Middle Eastern world of music and dance and poetry and writers from hundreds of years ago, I really wanted to learn more about Rumi and Shams, the poets, and just the written word and the way that they would describe. And so when you listen to Middle Eastern music and you translate it, it is not simple lyrics. And this book was to me, it was a love story to Rumi. The main character is an editor, and she has to read a book that happens to be about Rumi and his friendship with Shams of Tabrizi. And as she's reading it, she decides she wants to learn more about the person who wrote this, about the author. And so there they strike up a friendship, and eventually it turns into a romance. So if you like romance, if you like Middle Eastern poetry, this is a wonderful book. Okay, Just Mercy. Brian Stevenson is a hero of mine. I grew up at a time when we were going through the civil rights movement in Southern California. And when I first heard about Brian Stevenson, I was just amazed at all the incredible work he has done through the, the EGI, Equal Justice Initiative. This book is really, it's two stories. It's about a man that he's helped who is on death row, who was sent there because everybody was crooked. And then he also talks about stories in his life, what he's gone through, what it took for him to get to where he is now. If you're interested in social justice, especially now during these times, this is an excellent book. I think the most important thing about it to me is how articulate this man is. And I know people who have heard him speak different places have talked about the stories and the people that he's helped. So I highly recommend this. It's a quick read like the first book. This is a very quick read, but it'll introduce you to this man. Okay, The Murmur of These. This is a favorite of mine because along with coming from Southern California, my grandparents crossed the border about 1918, 1920, and this book takes place in Mexico. And all my childhood, we would always go to Tijuana, and they would tell us these ghost stories. And so this book reminded me so much of that because one of the main characters in this is a baby who is born covered in bees. And another character who finds him brings him home to the place where she lives, and those bees are just always there. And I just found that fascinating because I thought that would be something I would think about when I'm writing stories. The other thing I loved about it, it takes place during the Mexican Revolution. And my grandparents were just teens at the time, and they were, I think about 10 years after it, they got married. And so there's a lot of history in this. I highly recommend it because I would say this is the epitome of magical realism. Okay, this is another one that takes place, I believe, in Texas and parts of it in Mexico. And something we grew up with learning about was curanderas. These are the shamans in Mexico. They are male and female. And so the hummingbird's daughter is a gifted person. When she is born, she has spiritual gifts and magical gifts. She's able to heal, but she is more than just a curandera. There is more to her than that. And I was introduced to it as a child because my grandmother and my aunts would do this kind of magic in our home. But it's mostly for healing. I just recall my mother telling me stories about some of the things that I read about in this book. And it was wonderful because the author, Luis Alberto Urrea, is somebody that I have a lot in common with. He has written other books. He's one of my favorite authors. But one of the books he's also written is about the border as you cross into Tijuana, talks about the poor there. And we certainly used to go down, so that brought back a lot of memories. Oh, is that the last one? Oh, okay, that was fast. Thank you.
Next we have Oly Mistry. is a software engineer by profession. She graduated from the University of Tulsa. Rain came, I did go there, with a master's in computer science and is currently working in the software industry, serving pet healthcare and pet healthcare providers. She has a passion for reading, writing, acting, performance arts, photography, tennis, and singing, and is currently learning to play the ukulele with her 2.5-year-old son. She volunteers for Tulsa TNR along with her husband to take care of the local cat community. Other than English, she is fluent in Bengali and fairly adept in Hindi. She is currently enjoying reading children's books written in Bengali and English, and we'll talk about some of those books tonight.
Thank you. So reading is one of my favorite hobbies since I was a child, but as life started taking over, I didn't get as much time. But now I have a toddler who shares the same passion and interest in reading as I do, so I'm happily reliving my childhood. That brings us to the toddler level books. The first one is Where Are You From? And this is a great book that talks about belonging and getting to identify with a larger group. That's country, culture, even religion. It talks about all these heavy concepts through a very simple question. Where are you from? And it leads to the answer of home is where the heart is, which is very obvious, but it's so sweet the way the author talks about it. Now, I feel like that is the core concept of unity. So that's why I recommend this book. My toddler loves it. Second one is All Are Welcome Here. Now, this is a more straightforward book about welcoming everyone, irrespective of their color of skin, religious belief, family type, etc. The book talks about the sense of diversity using really familiar objects to children, like their play activities. What media are they using to draw or paint? So which are very graspable. And that's how it teaches diversity. And it also talks about how everyone is welcome at the school, which I think is a metaphor for a safe space. That is a very important concept in today's world. That's why it's one of my favorites. Third one is Unstoppable. And this is a really silly book, but it teaches about unity and how unity gives us strength to achieve bigger goals. And in a sense, this book is introducing the concept of democracy and electoralism to toddlers. And as a political activist, this book gives me all the points I need to tell my son without bringing the baggage that comes with politics. The fourth one is The Big Umbrella. And this is a concept, the book, it introduces similar concept like All Are Welcome Here. Now in Bengali, that's my native tongue, we have a proverb. It says, Jodi hoi sujan, tekul patai nojon, which I'll translate it for you. If you are a good person and willing to share and compromise, we can fit about 9 people under a tamarind leaf. Now for reference, tamarind leaf is a compound leaf, so each leaflet is about a few centimeters, like this big. So it's not practically possible, so I always struggled with that logistics as a kid. I wish I had a book like this, which told me that it's like compassion. The more you share, it's like love, the bigger it gets. So I feel like this is a great way of telling my toddler, just share it and you'll have more happiness and love in this world. Fifth one is kind of strange in this category, but I think it has a way of, kindness attached to it. So at first read, this book appears to be focused entirely on ecology and environmentalism. But I think there's an underlying subtext about kindness and forgiveness. It's narrated from the once nurse perspective who wanted to make new things but ended up succumbing to his greed, causing destruction to an entire ecosystem. However, by the end, he gives the last trufula seed to the listener and proclaims that unless someone cares enough about the ecosystem, the world is not going to get better. And he became the caretaker of the seed for we don't know how long, maybe decades, waiting patiently for that listener, for that one person who might care. And I think that kind of dedication could have only come from a kindness towards his own self. He forgave himself. So, and that kindness towards one's own self is very important in today's world. Kind of what we've seen through COVID, like we were so separated from our loved ones, and there was no one around us to tell us we love you, even when we're in the, that's something not nice or right. So I think it's very important to be kind to one's own self, and this book teaches that. So those are my 5 books, and thank you so much.
Our 4th speaker tonight is Leah Weyand. She is a collection development librarian for youth fiction and graphic novels for all ages at Tulsa City County Library. Her interests include cheese boards and gardening, and she's never met an office supply store she didn't love at first sight. I totally agree with you. Okay, welcome, Leah.
Hello, everyone. Okay, my first book is We're Not Broken by Eric Garcia. What do you think autism looks like? When you witness someone having social difficulties, do you think, might be on the spectrum? Maybe you think of Rain Man or The Good Doctor or The Rosie Project. Maybe you think of therapy methods that boil down to trying to fix autistic people. Well, political journalist Eric Garcia is here to say that autistic people aren't broken and don't need fixing, but they do need support on a policy level. Garcia writes in his introduction, more than a critique, this book is an exploration of how misinformation and fear can drive even the most well-intentioned people to make harmful decisions. I found this book to be a deeply reported, fascinating look at how we can improve the quality of life for more of our community. Garcia's journalistic writing is compelling, factual, and full of human interest details from both his life and that of a wide cross-section of the autistic community, and I highly recommend reading it. My next book, sharp turn, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. The tagline to this book is a novel of high fantasy and low stakes, which is my reading sweet spot. Author Travis Baldree describes it as a cozy, low-stakes novel of found family and reinventing oneself. A retired orc barbarian named Viv hangs up her sword to start a coffee shop in a city that has never heard of the gnomish invention coffee. In the process, she finds community and love. This is for every D&D player that would rather explore the city than crawl dungeons. It's for fans of Becky Chambers and people who think cozy mysteries are great but could be improved by dragons. And for folks that really, really, really love pain au chocolat. Originally self-published, it has been republished with a traditional publisher and became an instant New York Times bestseller and is being translated into 9 languages. See why this was a word-of-mouth success by checking it out today. All right, my next book is Check Please, #hockey by Ngozi Ukazu. Check Please was originally launched in 2013 as a weekly webcomic with all sorts of cute extras like social media posts from characters in the universe, hinting at plot points and behind-the-scenes sketches of storylines that didn't quite make the cut. Per the comic website, which you can still read it up on its original thing online, it's a story about hockey and friendship and bros and trying to find yourself during the best 4 years of your life. More specifically, it's about the former Georgia junior figure skating champion, vlogger, and baker, Eric Biddle, who starts playing hockey at Samuel University in the Northeast and has 2 big problems. 1, hockey involves checking, aka body slams, and 2, no one understands proper pie crust. Also, the hockey team captain is really hot. Surely that won't be an issue. Find out why this graphic novel's print campaign remains one of the most funded webcomics Kickstarters of all time by checking it out today. It is back there on the table. My next book that I want to share with you is Himawari House by Harmony Becker. Himawari House is a beautiful, melancholy, but also funny and heartwarming novel that follows main character Nao as she spends a gap year in Japan to reconnect with her heritage after growing up mostly in America. We also get to see the perspective and inner thoughts of the other characters who share a Himawari house, including Korean Hyojung, Chinese Singaporean Tina, and Japanese brothers Shinichi and Masaki. One of the fascinating elements of this graphic novel is the use of non-English languages and subtitles to help convey various characters' linguistic isolation and eventual progression as they pass the year at their Japanese cram school and have moments where they don't understand each other in Korean, Japanese, English, and Singlish or Singaporean English Pidgin. This realistically depicts the exhaustion and struggle of trying to absorb a language and a culture, even as a heritage learner. It's also a visually stunning book with enough food scenes to make you desperately hungry for udon and sushi. Coming of age, light romance, universal feelings of humanity and family. To borrow a line from Rebecca Harrison, it's got everything. And last, I would like to share with you, Valentina Salazar is not a monster hunter by Zoraida Cordova. If you're the baby of the family, Valentina Salazar's plot to steal the family van and force everyone back into the way things used to be will probably make perfect sense. Honestly, even if you're the oldest child, you can see where she's coming from. The Salazars used to be monster protectors, following rumors to help monsters cross over into their realm and avoid harm from the hunters. But after their dad died, everything fell apart. No more campfires and family sing-alongs and van trips. Valentina will do whatever it takes to recapture the magic and help her family heal. This middle grade adventure is perfect for fans of Kaylin Barron's The Vanquishers, for upper elementary readers who like mythical creatures and hijinks, or kids who will grow up to be supernatural fans. It's full of humor and heart, and I really hope you take a look at it. Thank you very much for listening to this.
Our final presenter tonight is Krystal Lyons, who works in TCCL's customer care department, where she helps answer phone calls, emails, and texts for all 24 locations in the library system. It's a huge job. She is also a citizen of the Muskogee Nation and the vice chair of our Native Voices Affinity Group. She enjoys reading a variety of different genres and is looking forward to sharing some of these and some recommendations with you this evening.
Thank you, Ellen. Hello, everybody. Okay, so first book is Letters to a Young Poet by Maria Roca. This is the poet wrote his letters back to a young man who had written to him saying that he wanted to be a poet too, and he was asking for advice. Considering that these two men did not know each other, had never met in person, it strikes me as an incredible act of kindness that not only did Roca write him back more than once, he wrote him back thoughtfully and carefully, and he gave him great advice about everything, not just writing. One of my favorite quotes of all time comes from this book, from a section when Roca is encouraging the young man to do things in life that scare him. And it says, "Perhaps all the dragons of our lives are really princesses who are waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that scares us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love." It's also a quick read. You'll go through it in just a second. Next is Machine Hood by S.B. Divya. This is a sci-fi thriller about a future in which human beings take a lot of pills to make them faster, stronger, smarter. And they do this because they are now in competition with robots for most jobs. That means if you can't do your job better than a machine could, you have to do it cheaper. So you have to work all the time. At the same time, an intelligent machine is not considered a living being that has any rights of its own. This book has some of my favorite elements of a sci-fi novel, which is like great world building, technology that sort of stretches the limits of my imagination, while still being really deeply rooted in things that are happening now. I've thought about this book a lot lately with all the conversations about AI and the WGA writer's strike and so many things going on. I don't want to give too much away, but the idea of unity is why I wanted to recommend it tonight. There are some problems that can only be solved by coming together. This is a fun one. Alpert Women Wanted by Sarah Dahlal is a future Western fascist dystopia in which loyalty to the state is paramount and dissenters, especially members of the LGBTQ community, face execution. Approved materials are delivered by librarians who travel from town to town in their book wagon, but the librarians in our story are also delivering unapproved materials and providing safe passage for people who are looking to escape persecution. This book is about finding your people and about how those relationships ensure our survival. It also has a great tagline. I don't know if you can see it. It says, "Are you a coward or are you a librarian?"
We need a t-shirt.
This one's a little heavier. We Are Not Like Them by Christine Pride and Joe Piazza is a book about friendship, and it follows two women, one black Riley and one white Jen, who've been friends since they were children. But that friendship is tested when Jen's husband, a white police officer, shoots and kills an unarmed black teenager. It's a powerful book. It's very impactful. It's told from alternating perspectives. And one thing I really appreciate about it is that it explores the temptation or tendency to want to let go of a relationship entirely, rather than go through the discomfort of having hard conversations. But hard conversations are necessary sometimes. Otherwise, what you have may not be a true friendship. All right, last one. The Seven Circles, Indigenous Teachings for Living Well by Chelsea Luger and Tosh Collins. Chelsea and Tosh are the creators of Well for Culture, which is a grassroots initiative that aims to reclaim and revitalize Indigenous health and wellness. The Seven Circles include things like movement, food, land, sleep. The reason I wanted to recommend it tonight is because one of those circles is community. Having a place in our communities fosters connections and gives us a sense of purpose. And when you think about your actions as affecting not just yourself, but your community, and especially if your concept of community includes not just those of us who are alive right now, but your descendants and your ancestors, that can really change the way that you live your life. All right, that's my 5 books.